All right, what's going on, guys? So first and foremost, I want to apologize if there's any disturbance in this audio because I'm sitting right next to my window of a hotel in Puerto Rico that is right downtown, and for some reason people love honking and stuff. So we're gonna grind right through that. Next piece that I will say is, if you want, for some reason, I don't know, if you want to watch the video, it's me at a desk on a chair gripping a ball. If you want to watch this video, you can go to my YouTube to watch this video. So today we're going to be talking about practice versus games. Okay, so one of the most asked questions, aside from, I guess, velocity, something in regards to velocity, or something in regards to plyo balls, or something in regards to command. My biggest question that I get is, why can I do X, Y, and Z in practice, and why can I not do that X, Y, and Z in games? Like, why do things change, right? So if you're a performer, any type of performer really, baseball player, actor, waitress, like, I don't look at it all too differently, but I think we all know that we can do something exceptionally well to the highest of our ability, right? That's how I guess we would set standards for ourselves, but we can do something to the highest of our ability in a setting in which it's just us, right? When we practice alone, we can do something over and over again, absolutely flawless, fantastic, whatever. And then as soon as something comes, like, as soon as it gets on the line, as soon as something is on the line, as soon as people are watching, as soon as it gets quote unquote more important, right? Everything changes. Okay. Now, obviously there's a ton of different components to this. I've written down a few of the components that I see more oftentimes than not in the baseball world. So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about a lot of the different things. And if you've been a listener of mine for some time now, you know that when I do these solo podcasts, that I can be kind of all over the place, and that's okay. That's who I am. And if you don't like it, then you're probably not going to listen to my podcast, and that's okay. But before we dive in, a few quick notes on the pre-roll is episode 3 of the vlog. The Winterball vlog is now out. I encourage you to go check that out. I'll include the link to that in the show notes. I'll include the link to all of my vlogs in the show notes as well. So whatever platform you listen to this podcast on, you can check that out. The episode 3 vlog, I look at it like there's so much quality content. Obviously I'm biased, but there's so much quality content that comes in with a baseball season and just being around baseball dudes that it's hard for me to clip it all the way down to like 20 minutes. And for that particular episode of episode 3, I was just like, all right, I'm going to try to shoot weekly episodes. And then I quickly realized, like, oh my goodness, I shoot so much footage that we're going to probably have to segment that day in, day out. So the episode 3 vlog is about an hour long, and it's quality. My mom even said so, and she's usually my toughest critique. So there you go. And then I'll include one more link in the show notes as well to a plyo ball drills and routines ebook that I actually published back in 2019. And I had it for sale, and then I quickly was just like, all right, well, I'll just have this as a downloadable option. I'll include that link. It's going to take you to a page. It's probably going to ask you to sign up, register. It's a free account. And then once you register that, you can then download that ebook off that site, therobbyrowshow.com/free-ebook. Will take you to that page, but like I said, I'll include the link in the show notes. And then I would encourage you guys to subscribe to my YouTube. I don't think I need to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I've totally discontinued all my coaching service, all my remotely and in-person coaching service, obviously, while I'm out here in Puerto Rico. And we're grinding. We're not, especially during right now, today's date is December 4th. I don't even want to give you guys a sappy story, but just know that if you subscribe to the YouTube, boy, maybe gets a nice little chunk of change, and that could be used to provide you guys with more content in the future. So if you're listening to this and you have yet to subscribe to my YouTube, go ahead and do that. But yeah, so all right, we're gonna dive right into it. Like I said, I got a few bullet points here that I really want to hammer home. Talking about practice versus games. We're talking about the mental game, obviously, is included within this as well. We're talking about performance. We'll dive into some performance anxiety. Now, the reason why I love to talk about this stuff is kind of twofold. One being that I have personally struggled with this stuff, and I personally struggle with it even today, right? Like, it's no, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things that's obviously embarrassing, and no matter how hard we kind of try to deny it, it becomes apparent when we do go out to perform. And I think us all being athletes or whatever walk of life you're in, there's that little bit of alpha male, like, oh, I train so hard, I shouldn't struggle with this type thing, so now I'm embarrassed or I'm going to try to hide it, so on and so forth. I get it, right? And then the two part to that, the second part is I don't think people talk about it enough. Honestly, I don't think. I think we're so prone to discuss the physical manners of performance, right? You know, everyone wants to see hashtag baseball training and what exercises can I do and what drills can I do to throw harder and you know, what can I do from a physical standpoint to improve my performance. But at the same time, like this mental kind of component, especially when we're talking about these whole like practice versus games, if you're somebody that excels in practice or excels when you're by yourself, it's not all the time going to be physical. It's not really the case, especially in this particular subject, in this category. And I don't think anyone should feel embarrassed about it. I think anyone that is in the entertainment business, whether it be, you know, like I said, an actor, I feel like an actor would be the same thing, or a podcaster, like whoever, there's always going to be that sense of anxiety, and you can do whatever in a very comfortable environment, and then things change in a quote-unquote uncomfortable environment, you know, and that's just the way it is. So diving into it, like I said, I have personal experience with this. Some points of my career has been extremely bad, and then some points of my career has been extremely good. And the first thing that I want to dive into is this super fine line of like not caring. And this is something that I struggled with a lot early in my career. I'm talking like 18, 19, 20. Because there's this fine line, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this can attest, but you love the game, right? So I'm going to speak personally from baseball, okay? So you love the game of baseball, you love pitching, or you love hitting, or whatever it is, and you put so much blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then you get into that time where it's like, all right, now we got to perform, we have a game, right? And you have that notion of, man, I love this so much, I don't want to fail because I want to continue to do this over and over again, right? I want to make this last as long as possible. So then there's that sense of, you know, like you have to perform because you love it so much and you want to continue to do it. This was something, like I said, early in my career, where it was like I loved it so much, and I don't know why I'm saying that in past tense, but it was one of those things where you would think outside looking in that that's a great thing, right? I always talk about passion. You got to have a passion for this game, and you got to love it. You got to want to have that, you know, fuel you to work hard. But at the same time, for me, 18, 19, 20 years old, I loved it so much that it was then taking over my identity. And with anything in life in general, it's always the roller coaster stuff, right? So it's a wave. And so that was kind of one of those negatives for me, was because I would train so hard. And again, I was a starter, so I'd train so hard for 4 days, and then on that 5th day, it was start day, and I would put so much pressure on myself. The game of baseball is already enough pressure, right? And I would just continue to put more pressure on myself because I was like, all right, I love this thing so much, you know, and I cannot let this go. And therefore now I have to do good. I have to frickin' execute every single pitch. And what was happening throughout this time was that the weight was just getting heavier and heavier, and the burden was getting heavier and heavier. And I could not just, there wasn't, you know, I talk about freedom, and I think freedom is a physical and a mental type cue. And we can talk about all the physical stuff. I've been very vocal about that in my career as well. But from the mental side, I was just absolutely, I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating. The movie Replacements, right, sums this up great when freaking Shane Falco, Keanu Reeves, man, oh, great movie. When he's like, my biggest fear is quicksand, quicksand on the field, right? Like, you get stuck, you start sinking a little bit, you try harder physically to get out, you try harder, you exert more energy to get out, and the harder you try, the deeper and deeper that you sink. And that was exactly the story of my first 3 years in professional baseball, was that I always looked at things, because again, when I was in high school, I didn't really fail, right? In performance, in practice, in whatever, there wasn't a whole lot of failing. So I guess learning how to fail, however weird that sounds, was a huge piece to my development. But I always tackled things with just more effort, right? Always an effort guy. I was just like, all right, now I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work harder. That's fueling my passion and my commitment and desire to improve. And I'll just work harder physically. And what I noticed was that the harder that I worked physically, the more that I expected from myself. And then the more that I expected from myself entailed more pressure that I was putting on myself in games while trying to perform. And then for me, again, becoming or just being someone that talks often about identification, and you have to identify at an early stage on what you need to do, and how you need to kind of think, how you need to act in order to get the best version of yourself day in and day out. And that was kind of a huge piece to my development throughout those first couple years, was learning about myself and identifying about myself. Like, okay, if I want to be good, all right, if I want to be good like I can be in practice, I need to be free. I need to have fun. I need to smile. I need to laugh. I need to have fun with my teammates. I need to be loose, right? Yes, you can expect a lot of things out of yourself, but at the same time, if you're kind of realizing like, holy smokes, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself to execute these pitches, then, shoot, probably not going to do it. But again, everyone's different, and I think that's the beauty of all of this too, is like, I've heard Clayton Kershaw talk about it too, where he has to be like super duper intentional and focused on pitch execution, which again, I'm not saying that I'm not like that now, and I didn't learn like the opposite way. But some people, I think, when they focus so much on it and they put so much emphasis on it, then there's so much pressure that comes within that. Whereas me, I'm like obviously focusing on the task and setting sights. Like obviously there's physical things there, but then as soon as I like begin to go, I'm clear thought. Like I got to be flow state. So personal experience, obviously that whole quicksand analogy, I'm sure, like I said, a lot of people are probably can attest to that, where they love something so much that it actually puts more pressure on themselves internally, because we can talk about the external pressure, right? Coaches, family, whatever. There's obviously a ton of external pressure that comes in with in anything performance based. So internally, take a look in the mirror. How much pressure are you putting on yourself internally, and is there any way that you can kind of control that? And then how is that differentiating in practice versus games, right? So we'll round that back, that first point, to the actual whole basis of this podcast: practice versus games. What changes, right? So in games, in performance, that was a clear thing that was occurring in games for me. I would go through my practice and it was just, oh, that's practice, that's training. I'm obviously going to throw no-hitters and bullpens, and I'm going to have great catch plays and everything because it's relaxed, it's loose, it's carefree, we're hanging out, we're having fun, boom, boom, boom. We're still working hard, but we're having fun, and those are the results that you get in practice, and then in games, it's like totally different. So I would encourage you guys that are watching or listening to this is like, take a look in the mirror. Where are you guys at in regards to how you're approaching practice versus how you're approaching game? What changes there? Is that something, like I mentioned in the first kind of bulleted point, is that something that you might be struggling with? Is that your love and your passion, is that affecting you negatively in games? Are you putting more internal pressure on yourself in games because of, you know, the love that you have and the passion that you have and the amount of work that you put into it? You know, so check that. So now on to the next bulleted point, I would say, is the actual whole like smarter, not harder. And what does that mean? Obviously, it's pretty broad, pretty vague. But I would say for me, looking at early in my career, I never changed anything. And this could be from like the physical standpoint too. I never changed anything from the physical standpoint. If, for example, like throwing bullpens, right? They were very comfortable because I believe that us as human beings, we often seek the comfort in anything. Okay, we seek the comfortable lifestyle. We seek like, okay, how can I do this and make it the most comfortable as possible? And so obviously in practice, when there's nothing on the line, things are just comfortable, right? And we enjoy that. We kind of find more joy out of that. And joy is just, you know, a thing that I think all of us love. So that was another thing that I had to learn actually later in my career, I would say, was like, how am I preparing? Am I smart with how I prepare? Because we make our money in performance in games when things matter. When the lights are on and there's a dude in the box trying to freaking hit a triple off you. No one hits a triple. They're trying to hit taters. So if I know that everything in that moment of performance matters, then why am I not preparing in those environments, in those uncomfortable environments that we see in games, more so in practice, right? So how can I then manipulate my training environment to get that? So the first thing that I would start to think about was like, okay, if I'm alone and I'm throwing alone, usually I do that a lot, is like, how can I then put myself mentally? Because I think if you guys have listened to me in the past, you know that I'm a big advocate of like how strong your mind is and how much the like visualization stuff and the mindset, all that stuff, how much that matters. So, you know, I would do bullpens, you know, where I was mentally putting myself in simulated sequences, right? And I would put something on the line, whether it be like something that's extremely little, you know, or something that's extremely big, like a bet with a friend or a teammate or you know, a family member. Like, just put something on the line. I love that, you know, in Driveline, when they were doing those live ABs, I think when they first started airing live ABs, and you saw like on their YouTube videos, you know, like there was something on the line when someone would lose a bet, and it was like you get shot with a freaking paintball gun. Like there's going to be some pressure in that, because who wants to get shot by a paintball gun, right? Like that stuff is real. I know it's kind of silly, but it's real, because then your body is the most adaptable organism on the face of the planet, right? So it's gonna start adapting to that. I think that's why that's what separates like a guy like Trevor Bauer, in my personal opinion, than anyone else, because look at what he's doing and look at how much he's actually in there competing, instead of just like, oh, I'm going to throw like and I look at myself like this, and I'm going to change it eventually. I don't know if I have the means to, especially when I go back home, but it's something that I want to do. Is like, have you ever seen Bauer just like throw a bullpen? You know, like, no, you see him throwing live ABs, putting something on the line, talking smack, getting after it, and competing. And then the more volume you do of that, the more comfortable you find in that quote unquote uncomfortable situation. So that's another piece that I want to talk about, or I've been talking about, but just like setting yourself up for success, because we know that the money is made in performance, the money is made in games. That's when everything matters. So then how can we essentially set up our training environment to best replicate that? Now, I know it's going to be different. There's going to be things that are different. That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be completely comfortable, right? So find a way, get creative, whatever. There's things that I do that are pretty weird. I make sure that I film like all my bullpen sessions. I make sure I film all my simulated sessions. And if I just like, I remember the last bullpen that I threw before I came out to Puerto Rico, it was terrible. I was like throwing hard. It was like the hardest I've ever thrown in a bullpen, to be honest. but I could not put the ball where I wanted. And now, obviously, as I mentioned in the first episode of my vlog, I was like, okay, well, that mound was actually so bad that it was just shifting everything mechanically, so I had to cut it short. But still, I filmed it, and then I was like, all right, this is going in the freaking public eye. Like, here you go, man. This was me. I sucked. I'll own it. Let's go. Because I know that now in that bullpen, when I'm throwing, I'm like, all right, well, this is going out there. People are going to see this, you know? So there's that sense of, oh, don't look stupid, don't get embarrassed, right? And I think that even like those little tiny things, as I alluded to before, like those matter, and I think those add up. So smarter, not harder. Intentional training doesn't have to just be from the physical standpoint, right? Now, it's a physical move to then adjust your bullpens to, even if a guy's in the box, right? Even adjust your flat grounds to maybe a guy in the box. Whatever it is, it could be the littlest thing. I think those matter. And then more reps, more volume in those uncomfortable environments, right? Challenge yourself, man. I think if you want to be great, you got to do things that are just uncomfortable. That's with anything. And as I said this earlier, I was like, I get mad at myself because I do that a lot, and I don't know if it's for content related purposes or if it's just like me seeking comfort. But you know, there were some opportunities that I had to throw like some live BPs throughout that quarantine, and I rejected the offers. And I said, no, I'd rather like take my bullpens and or take my like throwing sessions and film them and like maybe do some instructional stuff. And I couldn't do that in a live BP setting. Then as I look back at it now, I can sit here honestly and say like maybe I was just doing that because like that was an uncomfortable thing, or maybe there's things that I wanted to work on. But to be completely honest, there's always got to be that time. You know, if you really look at it, there's that time of like development of, you know, certain pitches or sequences that you want to work on, or pitch execution that you want to work on, and then there's times that you need to just compete, dude. And I've started shifting my bullpen and my training sessions to like always including some sort of competing, you know, whether it be after the bullpen and then start competing, or flat grounds, you know, something that gets your competitive juices flowing, that puts you something on the line, right? Because as I mentioned, I believe that we just seek comfort, and we want to do things that are comfortable especially in our training, right? And then when we look at it, again, the overarching theme of this whole entire podcast is practice first games. Why can I do X, Y, Z in practice and I can't do those in games? It's because multiple things, obviously, but this kind of bullet point is like, just look at your training. It's as simple as that. How are you preparing, right? Look at the volume spent in comfortable environments and uncomfortable environments, right? You go all week, say it's college, right? And you got to start, say, on the weekend. You go all week in a very comfortable environment without thinking about anything, really, just kind of going about your business. And then that one day of week, then it's like, whoa, dude, this stimulus is drastically different than what I'm used to in my training. Like, no wonder you're going to be uncomfortable. Third bulleted point, real quick, and then we got to go to the field. But third bulleted point is like the visualization component of it too. I believe that the visualization component is like, find a way to get your mind comfortable for that environment, which I think is a very controllable thing. I always look back at, okay, if I have performance, say on Saturday, we perform on Saturday, and then Sunday I can look back at that Saturday performance and I can check all the boxes in regards to like, all right, did I control everything that I could control to put myself in the best possible situation to have success in that moment of performance? Now, I believe the visualization, the breath, the breathing, like I've talked about it on numerous podcasts. You can literally scroll down on whatever app you're listening to it on. There's a podcast I just did on confidence in baseball, on conviction, on clearing the mechanism. All of those components are tied into this because I believe that they are controllable things that you can do to prepare yourself from a mental standpoint to perform better. Meaning, if you can put yourself mentally and visualize like an uncomfortable environment, you know, you're at Yankee Stadium, guys on second and third, you're coming out of the pen, you can't even feel your feet, like, let's rock, let's execute pitches. All right, here we go. I believe, I really do. I believe that makes a difference, man. And then training breath, right? Because when we get out into performance, we get out into our game environments, the breath changes. Where it was used to be kind of comfortable and now it's uncomfortable, the breath kind of starts to heart rate starts to beat faster, the breath starts to get a little erratic. We start breathing out of our chest and our traps and everything gets kind of tight. Now we start feeling some mental and physical restriction, and it's different. So then how can we start preparing better? But yeah, that's what I got for you guys. Like I said, I just realized at the time I gotta get ready for the field. But to recap is like really simplify it and just look at the difference. Look at the difference between the way that you practice versus the way that you perform a game. What stimulus changes? Meaning like what input are you giving your mind? What input are you giving your body? What changes there? How are you preparing? Are you intentional? Smarter, not harder. Smarter, not harder is not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing as well, right? Set yourself up to have success mentally and physically. What is your mindset? How does your mindset change when you're in a game versus when you're in a practice? If I were a betting man, I would bet that in practice you're not thinking about it. There's not really a whole lot of conscious thought going on about execution of this or playing catch and hitting in the chest and all that, but there is in a game. So now it's not so much about changing your entire mindset and approach in a game, but it's just about kind of now teasing that mindset into your practice and putting something on the line, man. More volume in the uncomfort, right? More volume in uncomfort situations. Put guys in the box if you're throwing a flat ground or whatever, throwing a bullpen, do simulated stuff. Ask coach if you can do more live BPs rather than throwing bullpens. I remember one year, that's kind of what we started to do in a particular organization. Instead of throwing our bullpens, in a comfortable environment, just you and the catcher. Now, obviously, this varies depending on the individual if you wanted to work on a pitch or whatever. But instead of throwing that bullpen, you would throw 20 pitches in a live BP. Whatever. Like, let's go get it, dude. Competition. Let's get it. More reps, more volume in an uncomfortable environment. And with something on the line. Make bets with your boys. Like, get weird, get creative. Put something on the line that gives your sense of, maybe that doubt arises. Okay, now how can I deal with doubt? I got a podcast on that. Listen to that podcast because that's good stuff. And then now how can you set yourself up, right? How can now you, after you've listened to this, is how can you take all of the stuff that I've given you, hopefully that it was some quality stuff for you, and now how can I make changes in my training schedule or, in my daily life grind, right? So hopefully that helps, guys. I really do hope it helps. If you guys, well, I guess I can't say that anymore. What I was going to say about the email, I have a question platform, therobbyroshow.com/ask. It's usually wide open, but I'll be completely honest. We've had Wi-Fi problems. We've had cell service problems. I haven't been getting to those questions as much as I should. Not should, but how much I usually do. But I will get to those eventually. I don't, even if it's one a day. So if you want to ask me a question, as I mentioned, therobbyroshow.com/ask. But please do me a favor and look at like my YouTube, look at my website, because honestly, 99.9% of the time, man, I'm just sending you guys a link to something that I've already done. And that's, especially when I don't have much time, it's frustrating. Subscribe to my YouTube, subscribe to this, share this with someone, guys. If you can, do me a favor and share this podcast with someone that may be struggling in this particular, in this particular journey, or in this particular, what is this, kind of a dynamic, I guess? Yeah, I guess dynamic, because I know when I was struggling with this, man, is I was so proud of my work that I was like, I'm not struggling with this, I'll just work harder. And if I could, again, I'm biased, I know my information is not all that great, but if I could have listened to something like this and put a little bit more emphasis on wow, maybe I should switch up my approach, that would have been helpful. So do your part, share this with someone that maybe could be struggling with this, and hopefully it helps. But as I mentioned, I'll throw the links to my vlogs, my plyo ball free drills and routine ebook, and the link to my YouTube if you guys want to help me out and subscribe to that as well. In the meantime, love you guys. God bless. Enjoy the rest of your day. And then I will get you guys a link to stream my Winterball games. They're going to do it on Facebook and YouTube, I believe. But if I don't know when that link is going to come up, but I heard that it was going to be streamed on the Indios de Mayagüez Facebook page. You can just check that out. Facebook search engine Indios de Mayagüez. All right. Love you guys. God bless. Make someone's day better today. Hug your moms. Until next time, your boy's out. See you guys.